Howdy, folks. Hope you're having a great Thursday. I had a memory that Facebook shared this morning, which I brought a smile to my heart. It says, never let the limitations of others limit what is possible for you. That was Hal Elrod who said that. And it's funny because as I read it, I was remembering, as many of you may know, this summer was the summer of Anywhere But Here. I was finishing my continental map of the US and was not here for a better part of the summer. But on one of my road trips up to the Northeast, I stopped in Richmond, Virginia. I had a couple of mastermind groups that I facilitated. I had one particular meeting that evening. So I pulled into a Starbucks around 7 o'clock in the evening to do my mastermind call. And this things were slow there. There was just me and another young man, a college student, by the looks of the table where he was sitting. And it appeared that he was just studying, and the barista was taking advantage of the lull in the busyness of the store and began to sweep up, just probably getting ready for the end of their shift. And as he was sweeping the floor, he swept under the table where this young man was sitting and swept his feet. Now, this young man immediately sort of froze, began to look around, stopped what he was doing, uh, was having like a very subtle panic attack. Now, to a Cuban, this is a red flag. Now, I did not expect to run into a Cuban or a Latin kid at a Starbucks in Richmond, Virginia. But I sort of recognized what was going on. You see, to Cubans and to many Latins, it's bad luck when they sweep your feet. And what happens is, to Cubans at least, if they sweep your feet, you don't get married. I'm going to tell you right now, it's bull crap because it's not true. But this kid was obviously very visibly shaken by what had happened. So I figured I'd throw him a bone in case that was it. And I said to the barista, dude, if you had done that to a Cuban girl, all hell would have broken loose in here. And the barista didn't quite know what was going on, but the kid took the opportunity, stood up and said, yeah, man, it's bad luck when they sweep your feet. And I'm going to need you to hold up the broom. And then he stood and swept his feet on the bristles of the broom. And I'm going to tell you right now, I come from a very superstitious Cuban family, typical Cuban family, and even I had never seen that. So I asked the kid, I said, why is it bad luck when they sweep your feet? He says, I don't know. My mom always says that. And I said, but what is bad luck about it? He says, I don't know. I said, have you ever asked? And he said, no. And I said, I don't mean your mom. I mean, have you ever asked yourself if that makes sense for you? He just looked at me with this deer in the headlights look. And it was funny because a lot of times we really do adopt these limiting beliefs of our parents. We think we're honoring them somehow by having to adopt their beliefs, even the limiting ones. And sometimes it's the parents, it's the ancestors, it's just part of our DNA. But it's a weird sort of honor thy mother and thy father, and I'm going to just adopt everything that you've taken without questioning. My kids aren't like that, just so you know. But it was interesting because we built this loyalty, like I said, and the truth is that our parents have no intention of passing down, at least not the limiting beliefs. There's tradition, and that's a whole other thing, but they didn't mean to pass down limitations. Sometimes they inherited it from their parents and their parents from theirs. And before you know it, you have generations and generations. Hola, Rosie. Hola, Juan. Of people doing these things and subscribing to these limiting beliefs, but nobody knows why. And it's interesting because any of you do-it-yourselfers out there who have ever tried to lay tile, okay, we did it in our old house, and it's much easier to lay tile on a floor than to have to remove the existing tile to then lay down the new tile. I think most of you would agree with that. And what happens is, thank you, Mama. What happens is that we've had this recording that has been playing in our minds of what truth is all of our lives. So it is so difficult to have to unrecord that so that then we can record what is actually true and what is not limiting. Just like with the tile example, it's much more difficult to have to unrecord and then re-record the new one. So a lot of people don't even bother trying it. But can you imagine if we don't? And I want to encourage you that we really need to be reprogramming the way that we're thinking and removing those limiting beliefs and removing what doesn't serve us. And it starts with asking why. I heard a great story about a rump roast. Okay, this girl, newlywed couple gets married, and the girl is all excited. She wants to make dinner, and she's having both sets of parents come over, and she wants to make her grandma's favorite, famous rump roast recipe. So she sends her husband off to get a rump roast. He brings it over. She puts it in the container and she cuts it in half. And he says, "Why did you cut it in half?" And she says, "I don't know. That's how my mom makes it." And he goes, "But why does she cut it in half?" And the girl says, "I don't know. That's how she's always done it." So he says, "Well, let's ask her." So the girl calls him, "Mom, I'm getting ready to make this. And so just brought me a rump roast and I cut it in half. And I told him that that's how you do it. Do you know why you do it that way?" And she says, "Well, I do it that way because that's how your grandmother's always done it." So they get into this whole thing. They get grandma on the phone and they call her, and the mom is on the phone and the girl is on the other line, and they're telling the grandma all of this that's going on. And the grandmother just starts cracking up. And she says, "I had to cut the rump roast because my oven wasn't big enough. Not part of the recipe. It's just that it didn't fit in my oven." So here, this limitation, which just to use it as an example, has been passed down, and only now is somebody bothering to ask why. Now, with a rump roast, is it important? Maybe not. It is to whatever gave up their rump for that roast. But in life, I'm just using that as an example, but there are so many things that we adopt that come from our parents that we just don't ask why. That's just how they've always done it. That's just what they've always believed. And I think it's time that we really start asking and we start digging into uncovering where these limiting beliefs are coming from. Are they real? Are they even ours? Are we trying to find out and discover where they're coming from and how do they serve us? And most of the times they don't. Anything that's limiting is not going to serve us. But it's interesting because in my Universal Success program, the second module is all about uncovering and discovering and dispelling these limiting beliefs. And I'll tell you what, when people get into the second exercise in this module, second or third exercise, I immediately get a call. There's coaching as part of the program, and that's a component. But even before that coaching call comes in, I'm going to get a call, and people are blown away by the things that they uncover. I called my mom and I called my dad and we talked to my grandmother. Nobody knows, and it's just something everybody's always done, and we don't know why we have this superstition or why we have this limitation. But it's really important that we uncover and discover what they are, because many times they don't belong to us. We have inherited them unintentionally. Our parents never never mean to give us anything that's limiting, but a lot of times it will play a role in what we're willing to do and pursue in our lives. So I want you to figure out what those limitations are, and I want you to get rid of them. Focus on what makes it possible for you to achieve everything that you want to achieve, and dispel and get rid of anything that doesn't serve you. Okay, I want to make a recommendation of this book, Secret of the Ages by Robert Collier. This book is written in 1926, and any of my reading buddies out there, I always say you are what you read, that are into the personal development and self-help books, you're going to recognize that a lot of what you've read in the however many years you've been into that world would probably use this book as a basis. It's very fundamental. It's very important because it gets into really our thought process. It gets into the attraction and what we're believing for ourselves. So again, highly recommended, Secret of the Ages by Robert Collier. I give them away at workshops all the time. I get them on Amazon. They're $7 or $8 or something. But really, really worth the read. If you can get it on Audible, it's even better. But really, really worth it. And please, I encourage you to just examine what those limitations are, because they don't serve you, and you need to get rid of them to move on. I pray for all of those friends we have in Puerto Rico, and all the friends that we have who have family in Puerto Rico. I know they were hit very hard, and I pray that everyone is doing well. I know that there's a communication issue, which is causing a lot of grief for everyone, but let's just believe that they're okay, that it simply is a communication issue, and we'll get back on track and start hearing from them eventually, and praying for all those people in Mexico who have suffered from this devastating earthquake. Praying that these storms stop soon. But again, we're here and we're all here for each other. So pray you all have a great rest of your Thursday and a happy weekend. Bye, folks.